Alrighty, thank you so much for staying with us and welcome back. My good name is Brian Sankwa. If you missed the better part of the conversation, you can find us on our social media platforms at Y254 channel and at Brian Sankwa1. That's my personal handle. In this conversation, we are delving into matters the film, theater, and performing arts as well. And we are speaking to Wreiner Mandu. Kenyan youth are literally taking up space in the film, theater, and performing arts industry. And now, with disruptive technologies like artificial intelligence, presence of on-demand platforms and OTT platforms as well, including Showmax and Netflix, there's need for concerted efforts from stakeholders, including film producers, playwrights, scriptwriters, to monetize and actually ensure that the youth continue to showcase their talent, but at the end of the day, they make money out of it. Now, what can authorities concerned do to ensure that this whole space is gaining prominence in Kenya, and especially when it comes to investment from the government and actually, let's say, partners and investors, because storytelling is lucrative. It's actually a lucrative space. And now that we are speaking to the one and only Wreiner Mandu, he's here to add deeper insight into this conversation. He's also the founder and producer of Igiza Arts Production. Karibu sana, Mandu.
Thank you, Brian.
Mandu, not,
yes.
Yeah, you know, I forgot the D. But you prefer Wreiner.
Wreiner. Mandu is okay.
Okay.
Either is okay.
Both of your names.
Yes.
Okay. Now, tell us a little bit of what you do, because it's interesting. You have experience of 10 years plus. That's a decade being, you know, I don't know if it's a filmmaker or a playwright or a scriptwriter or both of them. And also, where did you start that you find yourself in this interesting, lucrative space?
Okay. So my name is Wreiner Mandu. I am a producer, or mostly of theater. But of course, I have tentacles in film as well. It's interesting that you just mentioned that it's an actual decade. You know, when you say 10 years and when you say decade, it's got like a different impact. When you say decade, it sounds like so many years. So yeah, been around for more actually, but I like to sum it up at 10, like you said, of producing shows in the theater. Yeah. Started in around 15. Just learning the trade and putting all the factors together. And then we had our first show at the Kenya National Theatre in 2017. Yeah. A play called Bedsitter Chronicles back in the day. At that time, we were seriously bootstrapping. You know, we were in a very bad space. Of course, you know, you're just trying to collate resources and just trying to carve a path for yourself. But then over time, we've seen the favor of the Lord. We've seen audience beginning to espouse us a bit more. And right now we can proudly say that we've got about I think 4,000 people following us on the socials. And for every show that we do, if it's a very bad show, maybe 1,000 people attending for a weekend. Igiza Arts Production also happens to be, and I'm not bragging, the Theatre Company of the Year. 2024 at the just concluded Kenya Theatre Awards.
Congratulations.
Yes. So, of course, I've also done a bit of film, but individually.
Right.
Yeah, for theatre, I've done it under Igiza, but for film, I've done it as Wreiner Mandu. Of course, featured in quite a number of TV shows here and there. Yeah. And continuing to do that as well on the side. But the main thing that I do is I am the producer for Igiza Arts Production.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, absolutely. Love that. Perfect. Right now, there's like prominent, I'd say, platforms, like I mentioned, on-demand platforms, including, let's say, Netflix. And right in Kenya, we have Showmax, yeah? It's like, I don't know if any of your shows has been on Showmax, but you'll tell us the prominent ones that are like syndicated, that if you mention, people literally connect and say, oh, kumbe you're attached to also that film. Yeah. You mention it later on. But if you were to compare the industry when you're starting way back and right now, what would you say are tremendous achievements that have impacted? In fact, I think this whole thing is based on the art of storytelling. Yeah.
Well, I think progress is perpetual. I think as the days go by, progress accompanies them. So anytime a day passes, there's something that has changed, there's something that has become better, most likely. So of course, when you came in, the industry was a bit docile. So you find that there's no embrace of the theater as much as there is right now. So comparatively right now, I think there's more embrace. There's more espousal, I think that's the word, of theater arts. generally, you find that people are now woke, quote unquote, about theatre. So the theatre-going culture has actually improved right now. The number of shows being staged.
Theatre-going culture.
Yes. The number of shows being done at the Kenya National Theatre. Actually, cinemas are different. Okay, when I'm talking about theatre right now, I'm specifically talking about plays. Yes, of course, there's the cinemas, which are also theatres, and that's movies. That has been there. That culture.
Commonly upper KNT.
Now we're talking about KNT. We're talking about KNT, we're talking about Alliance, you're talking about Brayburn, those spaces that people just go to watch plays at. Yeah, so you find that statistically, there are so many plays that are done at the theatres, and we actually have shows from February all the way to December. In fact, it's interesting that right now, if you go to KNT to look for space to put a show, you won't find any booked because it's fully booked till the end of the year. And who are booking? It's these theatre practitioners. So it tells you something about...
Like you.
Yes, it tells you something about the demand of theatre in the country. So to answer you, things have become better. I think the consistency of it, and of course, stakeholders like yourself, creating that publicity for it, you know, because it's through opportunities like this ones that people get to know that, actually, there's something like a play, you know. You asked about Echoes of War when we just started, and how it has suddenly just become the talk of town, you know, simply because of the power of social media. Because if there wasn't social media, nobody would have known that there's a play called Echoes of War that has been prevented from performing for whatever reasons. So you see, it's through such platforms that people get to know, okay, aside from movies, aside from Netflix, we can actually go to the theaters and enjoy a live performance. Yes, so to answer you...
Social media has leveraged and catalyzed storytelling and the demand for plays and theatre at large.
Of course it has. That's why when we are performing a play, we first of all have to do a marketing plan. And part of the marketing plan is creating material like trailers. Yeah? So if you create a trailer, you're not going to perform the trailer at the KNT. You're going to share it on social media platforms. Yes. So that you can now incentivize people, you can pique their interest, so that they can now, you know, be alive to the fact that, there's a show coming up. They can be well teased and now excited to come for the show. So the social media platforms, technology have actually catalyzed, that's your word, the love for theatre.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Amazing. Now, what is the difference between a play and theatre? Because somebody who's watching right now, they'll be like, sasa play ni gani? Now tumeambiwa kuna Echoes of War, and initially those Shackles of Doom. They've literally shackled the space and everybody's now concerned.
Okay.
What is a play and also what is theatre? And maybe now a film, let's say film, theatre and play.
Okay. So those are semantics.
Yeah.
Theatre and a play would actually just mean the same thing, but theatre is the broader term. Theatre is the mother term to now a play. Theatre is the whole industry, you know, the practice, the culture, everything. That's theatre. That's why we talk about theatre-going culture, not play-watching culture. So now you find that theatre could actually refer to the bigger umbrella, and theatre is big because now you'll find that we've got musical plays, we've got puppetry, we've got monologues, we've got just musical concerts. All these things happen at the theatre. So anything happening within the theatre confines is what we call theatre. Now, under theatre, you've got a play. That's when now things like Echoes of War and Shackles of Doom and The Anointed Cartel, which is our next play, come in.
Anointed Cartel,
Yes, our next play is called The Anointed Cartel. We'll talk about it later. So now a play is a specific product under theatre, because under theatre you've got 1,000,001 things. So now a play is that specific piece of dialogue where you've got different actors, you know, talking to each other and pushing a story till the end. That's a play.
Yes, absolutely. So hopefully mmepata, mmeshiwa mkiandika notes. So. All right, now when it comes to the storytelling bit of it, I don't know what interesting stories in this country need to be told from a director. I believe you're a creative at large. So anything to you is a story. Even a pen has a story. Even sitting here, we are storytelling. So if you were to compile it and pitch it out there, where do you start to, let's say, from scratch, so that a whole film or a play is birthed. So how do you combine? What are the components that go into that, so that a person who's watching and is interested to tap into this space can even consult you hereafter and say, you know what, Wreiner, please mentor me, or let's work with you in this journey.
I will try and encapsulate it using the briefest form possible. But for you to actually handle it comprehensively, you actually need an entire workshop, probably 2 weeks or even a month, because the creative process is perpetual. One, it's a process, you know. So you find that you won't write a play once. You will continually practice writing. Then now you will say, I can be able to actually write a play. So now writing is, first of all, you have to be motivated to write. And there are different sources of motivation. One could be frustration, one could be personal experiences, one could be folklore, you know, listening to others and whatever. So there's a whole raft of sources of inspiration for writing. Then now, once you actually identify what you specifically want to write about, there's something called storyboarding. Yes. Storyboarding is now you board your story, you know, you do milestones for your story. So I'm going to meet Brian at KBC. Then after that, we are going to travel to Nakuru. So you know you've done one milestone and another milestone. Then under the milestones, you now create what you call dialogue. Right. So Brian is meeting Wreiner. So now what are they talking about? So you see, once you've got that all captured, you can now have your story end to end and call it a play. Yes.
So The Anointed Cartel, a theatre play written and directed by Martin Aboya, produced by Wreiner Mandu. What is the story? Because I wanted to also talk a bit about stories specifically. How do you narrow down to a story? But then in the Kenyan context, what spaces need stories to be told from it? That you'd say, even if they're to be pitched on Netflix, because you know, I saw a comment somewhere where I think it was on TikTok, where I think it was an actor who was saying most Kenyan stories are not picked for the second time on Netflix. It's usually a one-time thing and then they're forgotten. But they will also tell us what usually happens. But then now back to the question: how do you narrow down to specific points of stories that are to be told?
Well, market research. Because theatre is a business, storytelling is a business, like you correctly highlighted at the beginning. And so if you're looking to make business out of it, it means you have to do a market survey. You know, what stories do people want to hear? Yeah. Are people tired of romantic stories? Are people tired of political stories, or what do people want? So the moment you've established that, then it's up to you now to see how you can cleverly leverage the space.
So you take an angle. It's like,
of course, you have to angle yourself.
Yes, editor, you take
of course.
the angle of a story.
You have to.
Okay.
Because see, if you just do it out of the blues, or rather without any compass, then you might not know who you're really aiming to get, and so the whole thing is just jumbled up. Yeah.
So the aim is to inspire, educate, entertain, or both of those?
Educate and entertain. And of course, now that you've said inspire, inspire is part of the education. But we can count it on the side. From today, we'll actually say educate, entertain, and inspire.
Or just inform. Because also some of these stories are being told and people are like, oh, this happens in the Rendile community. Yeah. But then this one, I think it's interesting, The Anointed Cartel. So this is a play, not a film.
No, it's a play.
Okay.
Live play.
Live play, meaning there's a live actors on stage performing for a live audience.
Yes, actually, that's the
stage.
difference. I remember you asked me to differentiate between a play and theatre in general. So a play is live.
Okay.
Audience comes in and they see you in your live element there.
Okay, absolutely. The storyline behind The Anointed Cartel.
Oh, The Anointed Cartel. It's a very contentious subject that you're trying to address, because we are talking about the role of the church in a lot of what is happening in our day-to-day lives. Okay, the church is traditionally supposed to be a place where people, it's a safe haven for all of us, you know. But gradually we've seen churches diversify into other roles that initially were not supposed to be part of the deal. Yeah.
Right.
So you find that a place that's supposed to be a safe haven for believers, you know, to go and get spiritual nourishment, has actually changed and become maybe a commercial space, and there's a lot of rot happening within the church space. So that's why the title is very cunning, yeah? The anointed.
It's satirical.
Cartel.
Okay.
We all know what cartels are, so I don't need to, you know.
Like, a cartel who's anointed by who? By the devil or God?
That's actually now why somebody needs to come to the play. Yes.
The dilemma of thinking of it. So it's a creative, actually, it's a creative title.
Yes.
Yeah. So what do you aim to fulfill by this play? At the end of it, it airs on
31st of May and 1st of June.
Yeah, so it's just a day to the other. Yeah.
Yes.
The objective?
31st of May and 1st of June.
Right.
The objective, every play has an objective. So if you're doing a religious satire, it means you're looking to make the masses know what is happening in these churches, and you're looking to enthuse the masses to actually do something about it, you know? Because you see, sometimes all you need is a story to inspire action. All you need is a story to inspire action. And maybe action is not being inspired because we don't have enough stories being told about it. The moment people hear, oh, what we are doing is now being uncovered at the theaters, they will sit back, or they will actually stop doing it. Because we need churches to be churches. We need churches to be where they were and what they were intended for.
Do you believe that real life examples and situations that could possibly make basis or form weight to this play, that you would say, you know what, from what we witnessed in some certain locations,
of course, I mentioned at the beginning that part of the inspiration or part of the rationale of writing a play is things that have happened to you or to others. It could be your experience, and then I get to share in it. It could be our experience, or it could be another person's experience. And the world is awash with examples of church scenarios that are, of course, very obscene, you know? And so it's because of such examples, just for fear of not being controversial, I might not be able to pinpoint and say this happened there, this happened there. But we've seen them, you know? We've seen people, we've seen skits on social media.
Do you believe it's a festering issue in Kenya?
It is.
It must be addressed?
Really, it is. It's thoroughly festering, actually, worryingly festering, and growing at a dangerous level. And I think the faster someone speaks about it, the better. I mean, we've seen things, man. We've seen people actually others even dying, others even getting involved in funny situations, you know.
Is a solid example.
Yes, you know, all in the name of the church, you know. So that is exactly what we are addressing in the Anointed Cartel. But of course, in a very creative manner. We artists don't go bare knuckles. We don't shoot from the hip. We'll not come and tell you, you know, wewe ni mjinga sana. We'll actually come and tell you you are intellectually bankrupt, you know, and still serve the same purpose. So we don't mean to shoot from the hip, but we mean to address the issue in a very creative manner using, you know, humor and every other style. Yes.
In short, fasihi ni kioo cha jamii.
Kioo cha jamii.
What you're trying to say.
So don't break the mirror. Look at it.
Okay. Don't fight the messenger, or don't shoot the messenger. Shoot who? Nobody. Okay. Now, in the echoes of war, with what's currently happening in the country, there's a certain effervescence of, you know, the spirit of, I think, revolutionarism and trying to, you know, social justice and activism. And when the echoes of war situation happened, actually we had no idea that, you know, the script could have possibly triggered political actors, and they reacted explosively. And we saw what happened. It's a dramatic scene, actually. Till right now, you know, the guns have not performed it yet. But the whole thing is now on demand, and I'm sure film producers like you, creatives like you are like, have you in any way whatsoever to say been touched by, let's say, the noises and the brouhaha, for lack of a better word, around these, you know, loud noises of shock echoes of war? Yeah? Well,
the brouhaha has actually just emanated from the festivals and the disgruntlement behind the kind of, I mean, if I'm to call it censorship that we witnessed.
Is that censorship really?
It is censorship.
Or just direct objection?
Well, okay, I mean, now that you've said it, I don't think it's censorship, because censorship is perform but regulate on what you're performing. This one is you're not performing at all, because censorship would be maybe we watched it at the regionals and we feel like you need to change this and that before you go to the nationals.
Certain,
yeah,
you know, right.
But this one is blatant,
like,
flagrant objection, you know, like don't perform. And of course, we come with corps and all, and you know, so I think, of course, any artist, like I mentioned at the beginning, would actually be incensed by what we saw, you know. But of course, it's a very delicate space as well because of the intricacies of it, you know.
In the spirit of what's happening in the country as well, the noises around social media, activism, digital activism, in fact. And I'd love to actually see a film that actually summarizes what happened from last year to, you know, this year, now to 2027, because I believe it's worth a big story, or even a play.
So you don't need to watch a film. You just need to attend Igiza Arts Productions shows more often, because every show that we do is a reflection of the times, either in real time or in the future. But most of our shows are non-perishable, because we find that a show we did in 2023 is actually still as relevant as it gets right now. If you go to our YouTube,
which one?
We did a show called last year. We did Flight 1963.
Flight
1963, which is a play that actually won an award. It was the script of the best script of the year by a gentleman who's a friend of mine called Martin Abuya. He is the writer for Igiza Arts Production.
I can see him here as well on this anointed curtain.
Flight 1963. And it's just an interesting story about what has been happening.
Martin Abuya, not Fred.
Martin Abuya. Yeah. Yes. What has been happening from 1963 until today. Very interesting, very witty, very satirical. So you watch, you laugh. You see history that actually triggers you and gets you exasperated, but you're laughing while at it, and that's the fun of coming to theater. We did another one called Needed Needs, you know, kneading, the way you knead unga and prepare dough.
Kneading,
yes.
K-N-E-A-D.
Yes, so kneading,
Okay, I get
so Needed Needs. So, and Needed Needs was the needs that we have as a country, sorry, we are the ones who have actually needed them. And so the story was a way of laughing at yourselves, get angry because what you're seeing, what you're experiencing, you are the ones who actually created it. A very nice political satire. If you go to YouTube, you'd find it.
Please go to YouTube. Is it on
Igiza Arts Production?
YouTube, okay.
Yes, it's a show we did in 2023. But if you go to YouTube right now, you would think that we shot it yesterday.
Just yesterday.
Because it's as relevant as
now. Fresh and new and relevant, like you said. Yeah. Okay, but then behind all this, but you've not told me how you feel about, you know, Echoes of War, please.
How I feel about it?
The sound of it. What do you think needs to be done? Because that can happen to the students, and next time it's happening to you.
Very dangerous precedent being set, and if it recurs, then we'll be taking a very bad trajectory as a country. I condemn it in the strongest terms possible, and especially because I'm a teacher, I handle learners a lot, all different age groups. So those children from Butere Girls, I look at them as my students, you know, and I look at their production as my production. So how would I feel if I did a production and the same thing happened to me? Of course, I'd be so angry. You know, if we want to have a conversation, let's be very diplomatic and pragmatic about it. Let's not be bullish in the way we do our things, you know. And I think that's what was witnessed, you know, reckless abandon and, you know, just impunity, you know. There's nothing you can do. You're blocking you from performing, and there's nothing we can do. Let's be a bit diplomatic. Because I'm sure if we sat on the table and had that conversation, maybe the children would have performed. Or maybe they would have understood why they are not being allowed to perform. But I don't think it should get to a point where people are actually being barred from performing. I don't think it should get to that level, because art is supposed to be art. It's supposed to be independent, and it's supposed to be, you see, art is the only form of opposition that we have. You know, as artists, art is the only way in which you can express yourself without fear of retribution. So now if you bring retribution, then it stops to be art. Big time. Big time, I agree with you. But then aside from that, there's a lot that goes into maybe you can take us through now production stages for specific let's say films and even plays that you've gone through. So what happens from the point now, the idea is now to be birthed now, and actors will appear on stage and everything. I think this is pre-production. Please just shortly touch on it. There's conceptualization, there's pre-production, there's production, and then of course there's post-production.
Yeah.
But for theater, post-production does not involve a lot because you've already done the...
Yeah, it's actually live.
You've done the product. And I know for film, post-production is where most of the work is, you know, you're editing, you're doing a lot of what you have to do.
Yes.
So now, for theater, once you've done your concept, once you've done your concept, once your concept is running in your mind and a script has been written, I don't want to go into the modalities of how a script is written and all because that's a whole different topic.
Yeah.
But I can actually just brush through.
Yeah, please.
So you've got a concept. You've got a script.
Yeah.
Now you go to casting. You look for people who are going to bring out the roles as befittingly as possible. Then
So
now you
meaning
have...
that there's auditions as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, auditions.
That's
of
where you
course.
met a lot of talents that you want and don't want. Talents that you can shelve for the future, or talents you dismiss.
Yes, talents for now and talents for the future.
For the future.
Because talent is talent. Yeah.
I've heard actors being told, you know what, wewe tukuone.
No, you don't have to be that brutal. I know of
Yeah.
people who actually do that. They actually
Yeah.
abrasively just tell you,
Yeah.
usanisi yako,
Yeah.
chana nayo, unahema.
Is it possible to have someone who is in that space, but you know they're forcing it and trying to, you know, to let's say fulfill a part that they, you know, very well this person needs to polish their skills a little bit so that you know they get better at it, but then they end up actually making it maybe because of connections and whatnot. We've seen so many actors on screen, and you ask yourself, how did this, you know, personality get this role? We thought this role would have, you know, fitted.
For me, I think it stems from, one, we need to look at it from this point. You as a person, are you honest? Are you motivated enough to, you know, carve a path for yourself as far as acting is concerned? That's the first step. Because I don't think there's any person in this world who's unteachable, you know? And I don't think there's someone who was cut out to be an actor more than the other.
Yeah.
It's
Even
just,
me, I can be an actor.
Yeah, it's just about where your heart
Would
is.
you cast me in any of your plays? Would be a little bit.
Yes,
you know,
we would try. We'd try you. We'd give you a few lines.
I'd like maybe theater now.
We'd try you. We'd give you a few lines and see how you'll do them.
Yeah. So the goal is to bring out the character or the emotion, the flow, and the feel. Of
Now, character
the script.
captures everything you've just said.
Okay.
Character
So the
is
character
the emotions, the flow, everything. That's
Okay.
character. So you see,
So if it's crying and I can't cry instantly,
you
you'll
don't
put
have to
Rob,
cry instantly.
You'll put Rob and Pili
No,
Pili
no,
Hoho
no, no.
on
That's that's quite mechanical. But if your character is internalized and your emotions come from a place of internalization,
yeah,
you know, you don't need to put Rob and, you know, teardrops and anything.
Yeah.
You just need to be yourself and the tears
Right.
will come. That means you're deeply immersed into your character enough.
yeah.
If you're not immersed enough, that's the time when you'll start saying, oh, makeup, nisaidie Rob, nipake, naingia stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually spoke, I think he's one of the presenters here. He's called Kevin Kasioki. He was telling me he was researching on how the culture of Nduthi guys. So he was telling me he spent 2 months in these pickup points where border operators stay and how they act, how they respond when they are sad, when they're frustrated. So he was telling me it's been 3 months of literally studying how to be a full-blown character of a border ride. And I was like, whoa. That's
Is he doing this
mind-blowing.
because he's playing that role in a film in the future? Or what?
Yeah. He's actually, I think maybe they've already been filmed because it was early January.
Okay, now
Yeah.
that's what we call method acting. I was actually going to come to active production because I was breaking
Okay,
down the
please.
process. Yeah.
Okay.
So we've dealt with writing, we've dealt with casting. Now we've got a crew and we've started rehearsals.
Right.
Yeah. We develop a rehearsal schedule. You know, you have your director, you have your stage manager, and any other crew member that you need for the production.
Yes.
And now you've started working. So as part of production, if you want your character to come out as truly, as credibly as possible,
Yeah.
there's something called method acting.
Method acting.
Yes,
Okay.
and method acting is you try and immerse yourself into the character as much as possible using whatever is available
Right.
to you and yourself.
Okay.
So you find that guy had to actually go and spend time at do the shimos, yeah? We call them shimos, eh? Just to be part of them.
Yeah.
So that akitoka hapo, there's something that has become of him based on that. So that's part of method acting.
Perfectly brings out the role and the character.
Yeah.
of a border
If you want me
rider.
to play an undertaker or a morgue attendant, I might have to go and spend some time in the cold room, just to get that character
guys and
yes.
That can be intense and detrimental to your mental well-being.
Yeah, that brings me again to something that we call de-rolling or de-characterization.
Okay.
So you've rehearsed, you've staged your item. Of course, now when you're preparing the play, of course, you're marketing on the side, you're doing media tours, you're inviting people to come and watch your show. Yep. Then now, the show day is here, you've performed.
Yeah.
You've done your 3-4 shows, you're done with that show. You need to de-roll. You need to come out of the character that you had gone into.
Do you need some time off to do that?
Different people use different techniques to de-roll. It can get psychological where you actually go and have to go and see a shrink for you to actually de-characterize.
A debrief.
Sometimes it just means, detaching and going to find yourself again.
Disappear.
Some people will tell you, I just go to the forest and reconnect
I've actually seen it with
nature.
Hollywood actors and actresses. Let's say for this role, I had to, I think it was Lupita for I don't know, is it called? Yeah. Wizard or Witch? I don't know. And the one I think is called Wicked by Ariana Grande and Cynthia and Rivo. They had to thin, like they are super thin. They lost weight, drastic weight, and they're being called, oh, this is an Ozempic species. Yeah, so you can imagine such intense roles, being brought out in films and theater. So it means there's a lot that goes into bringing out a meaningful and impactful story, whether it's in a play or a film.
Yes.
Now, for example, like what for Anointed Cartel, it's a live play, right? Live stage play. So is it possible for when it's performed and done for it to be watched somewhere thereafter, or once the audience attends and watches it, end of story, next time maybe come for another episode, if maybe it's episodial for that matter?
Essentially, that's how we like to do it. It's for theater, that's the eminent style. Like, that's the purpose of theater. It's supposed to be live. So come see it live. If you miss it and we happen to have a rerun, come see it. Sometimes you have shows that actually come back due to public demand.
Right.
Because it was so good and people didn't find time for it. Maybe you find that the amount of people who missed it are enough for quorum, so you find it being brought back.
Okay.
Rarely, but sometimes it happens. But now, ideally, theater performance is supposed to be live, so watch it, get done. However, we've got exceptions. Like for Igiza Arts Production, we've got acolytes as far as the US, the UK. We've got people out of the country following us.
Yeah.
And so for such people, you might not be reasonable if you're telling them to catch it live. So for those, we actually...
Unless it's streaming on some sort of like...
So we record.
An OTP.
We record.
OTTP or whatever.
We record our
so
shows.
Record it,
We record our shows very professionally, using proper equipment, good camera angles, good sound, good editing.
The same way you do a film.
A film.
Yes.
Yes. Only that now your angles are limited because, it's just the stage, limited movement. So maybe you'll have 3 cameras.
Shooting and
yes,
whatnot.
Yes.
I get it.
So now we record, we edit very well, and we store them.
Okay.
So for our audience that cannot be able to be there for whatever reason, we avail it to them at a fee in form of a link, so they're able to catch up and remain abreast.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Actually, that leads me to the next point of distribution of films. And how is it being done in this country? And authorities like, I think, Kenya Films and Classification Board, how are they playing, in terms of adding their weight to giving you guys a conducive environment? I believe you guys should be entitled to some monetary benefits as well, now that the issue of licensing comes into play as well. I believe you don't just operate freely like a bird. There's some policies as well that you've adhered to, and authorities as well that you pay homage to.
There's of course, there's KFCB, there's PRISC. PRISC is performing rights, I forget the initials, but it's just performing actors, something rights. Yeah. Yes, more like MCSK, but now when it comes to
film,
So of course these bodies serve, some of them serve to just regulate the content.
That's what they do.
That you do.
And licensing.
Yes, and licensing. And gatekeeping, and all those things.
Do you believe there are a little bit of barriers in terms of
barriers as to what type of barriers?
In terms of now, let's say censorship now and regulating, because I think it was called, I've forgotten the film, but it was really controversial. They banned it. They said, you know what, this one cannot air in Kenya.
I remember it very well. I just forget the name. I forget the name.
Yeah, me too.
But it eventually, it aired first before it was banned. I remember it. It had different clauses that didn't sit well with Mutua at that time.
Moral Society.
Yes, the office of KFCB at that time was not amused. Yeah.
Right.
So, of course, there are those. I don't think we'll get to a point where we've actually completely eliminated censorship. And censorship is good and bad.
Right.
And it all depends on who is actually sitting at the helm of that institution as at that time. So you just hope and pray that the moral standing of the person sitting at the helm of the institution at that time favors, you know, the idea of censorship is favorable. Because you'd find someone perhaps who's holier than thou, they would censor everything.
Yeah.
So you find that everything is not appropriate, you know. But if you find someone who understands the spectrum broadly, they'd be able to give a bit of more leg room for what goes on air. Yeah. So I don't think
we'll ever gatekeeping.
Yes, I don't think we'll ever get to a point where censorship is all in the past. We'll always have censorship.
But would you say that hinders creativity and even just organic developments of stories that need to be told? Because at the same time, yes, you're a creative, but you're limited by some certain, you know, organizations that are authorities that are there. I don't know if you also at Igiza, are you guys required to have a license to continue with operation as
theater practitioners? You
don't need a license.
We do not need a license. But of course, we are regulated. We need registration, but we don't need licensing. Because now as a theater company, of course, you need certification and things like that. Because we are not limited to the theater space. We do a lot of other things. Diversity. You see, we do educative theater, we do community theater. So you'd find that if organizations want to co-opt you into community theater projects, they will need you to be registered and certified and incorporated. So of course the paperwork comes in. But for licensing, as far as theater is concerned, not so much.
Maybe it goes now to like selling of these films. And I think I had mentioned they're called over-the-top platforms like Showmax. And then we have Netflix at large. But sometimes the money you get from that, it must at least go to, or KFCB has to be aware that, you know, you made 1 million out of Jero Uber that you are part of as well. But then the question again is still on the money part. How do actors get paid? Either if like the ones performing in the Anointed Cartel and even films as well. How is the monetary, the monetary synchronization? Where is it paid per role, per scene? And who actually determines how much an actor gets in a specific film or even play?
So there's no single script for, single manual for how actors are supposed to be remunerated. But what happens is, it depends. It's unique to every production. Because no 2 or 3 productions have the same financial wellness. You'd find a production that has a budget of maybe 3 million and another one that is almost 0 budget. You see, the 2 of them cannot pay the actors the same way. So it depends on the amount of resources at your disposal and how you do your financial planning, like what goes where. Because you see, you could still have 3 million as your budget for production, but 2 million has gone into logistics. So you only have 1 million for the actors. It does not mean that if the budget is 5M, all this 5M goes to actors. So it depends, one, on how many resources you have available, and it also depends on your allocation, how much of your resources are allocated to your talent. And then now, if I'm to speak about it, right now, I think the Achilles heel of almost all the theater companies in the country. Not all of them, because some of them are, what do we call? Some of them are commissioned. They do what we call commissioned shows. So you've got an organization funding you from the beginning till the end. So you'll never struggle with things like Talipa, Tazaji, you'll never struggle.
We see that internationally a lot,
Yes, but you see, if you are the one who's taking care of every single thing.
Yeah.
You'll have to bootstrap. You'll have to use very minimal resources, very frugally, for you to be able to achieve your objective. See,
so
because now you see,
there's budget cuts left, right, and
we
center.
depend on ticket sales for
ticket
us to
sales
run a
actually,
production.
by the way.
That's why we try to make ourselves as visible as possible. You know.
Yeah.
So anyone who's watching needs to know that through patronizing a theater show, they are actually supporting the creative economy in a very intense manner, you know, because that single ticket, that 2 tickets, 3 tickets, 4 tickets are the ones that will actually total up to 1,000 tickets, which will enable the production to pay for the venue, pay the actors, pay for all the other expenses, and remain afloat.
Right, actually,
you know,
and everybody is equally sorted.
Yes.
But then the biggest question I think that's talked about a lot is, why are Kenyan actors broke? It's for the fact that they featured in prominent leading films that were really impactful, you know, but, you know, you would hear a story, this and this happened, this person has been on TV for 15 to 20 years. And it's not happening just right here in Kenya, it's happening even to actors and actresses in Hollywood, you know. I think it was, is it Viola Davis? Yeah, who actually complained how she's been in the film industry. Actually, in that whole entire Hollywood space, and the way it's actually the biggest and most lucrative in the whole entire world. But she says the money is not money. Same to, I think she was Taraji P. Henson, said the very same thing. It's common a lot with black actors and actresses. And now back here in Kenya, what makes Kenyan actors broke? Where does the money go to? Is it because you guys are not paying them their worth, or you guys are exploiting them?
Well, I think most of the things you said are true. Like I said, there's always a black sheep among the lambs. Yep. So even as we try to make the space as accommodating, as conducive as possible, we'll still have 1 or 2 people who are actually fighting from the other end. Yeah. So you won't miss cases of exploitation here and there.
Especially for lead roles?
Yeah, and especially in the film industry, you won't miss cases of exploitation. You see? With theater, it's different because the box office, where we do our ticketing from, you'd be able to after the show, you can even estimate how business was. But you see, with the film space, I don't think people will be as honest as possible to give you the full lowdown of how much money they were given, maybe per episode or for the whole production. So you see, if you get called for a role and you're told, we only have a budget that can pay you 4,000 per episode, you have no way to actually do a due diligence or whatever to find out if it's true or not. And that's where exploitation comes in. So you just trust that this 4Gs I'm being paid is actually what the budget is. But the budget could actually have been 20 per role, but you see you're getting 4. Because there's a lot of gatekeeping. Before the money gets to you, it's gone through different strata. But for theater, I think that is limited because you're able to see. If a show has not sold out, you'll actually just see that the show has not sold out. And that's the reason why most of theater producers like myself have embraced, not all of them, some have actually gotten themselves out of the morass and actually just gotten the financial stuff right. But for the theater companies that are still, making their way up there, you find that there's a model that we use. You'll find that we have contracts that are tied to percentages.
Right. So and that includes now the payment.
Yes. So if a show accrues this much, this is the much that will go to talent. It becomes very easy because if we flop, we are all flopping. If we thrive, we are all thriving.
So the budgeting part is really important.
Yes.
Very important. But then before you talk about the anointed cartel, which you partially talked about, lastly, why are Kenyan shows not picked a lot for the second time on Netflix? It's actually a question that a lot of actors also ask, and even the fans. Maybe it was a good film, but then Netflix is not picking it up again. They'd rather go to South Africa and pick, what is it called, Young something, and famous. Why are the stories not picked up on Netflix?
Again, it's a very it's a dicey space. I do not have a lot of speech to make about the film space because that's not where my office is located. My office is located in the theaters. But I happen to feature in films at a personal level. You know, I get called for roles, maybe because of my physique, maybe because of how I speak. I get called for roles here and there. So mine would be an opinion.
Please say.
I need to disclaim. Mine would be an opinion, not a fact.
I know you're playing safe because.
No. Hata sichungi kazi. Wakikata kuniita pia ni sawa.
Let me not say it.
Yangu ni opinion.
Yeah, I know. This is banter.
Mine is an opinion that perhaps you don't get.
What is the problem?
Kwa sababu maybe the quality of our stories is
exactly
below the bar.
Thank you. Your film, The Anointed Cartel, a theater play. Talk about it shortly as you exit.
Okay, The Anointed Cartel, religious satire, very gripping, very enticing, very enthralling. It's a cast of 13, telling the story of our churches and the role it plays in the moral decay. Very educating and entertaining. And it's happening at the Kenya National Theatre Main Auditorium on 31st of May and 1st of June. 2 shows each day, 3 p.m., 6 p.m. Tickets are available on the website, igizaarts.co.ke. And of course, more information, not only about The Anointed Cartel, more information about Igiza, the shows we've done, the shows we plan to do. You can always find it on igizaarts.co.ke.
Okay.
Yes.
So who are the main targets for this film? In terms of age bracket, or it's open to the general public?
Age bracket. So I think it's rated 10.
10.
So anyone 10 and above can actually comfortably come and watch.
Yeah.
So if there's any parent who's watching and they're like, can I bring my kid? Yeah, you have your answer. It's not having any bad innuendos that can actually maybe poison the minds of the kids or anything.
Or instigative acts.
Yes, or maybe instigative acts is a very creative way to call it. Yeah, so I mean, it's not having any of those. It's lacking in those. It's just, it's a straightforward story.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe just how heavy the theme is, that's what informed us to cap it at 10. But beyond 10, anyone can actually just grab a ticket and get to watch it.
Okay, how much are the tickets going for?
The tickets are 1,200 early bird and 1,300 advance.
I can see the special offer disclaimer here.
Yes, that's the early bird.
Oh, there's the early
and
bird.
it's running all
From
the way
now
up to
till-
Easter.
Okay.
Yeah, it's covering Easter. So beyond Easter, it's going to be advance, which is 1,300.
Okay.
Yeah, but all this information is available on igizaarts.co.ke.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So, any last words? Because, you know, you're the teacher here, I'm the student.
Oh, my parting shot.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, for me, one, just to appreciate the conversation that we've had and urging people out there, anyone who's watching, that we have a very good thing going on called theatre. And it's about time we all embraced theatre as much as we embrace Netflix and Showmax and Kenyan content on TV and even YouTube and whatever. I think we should equally enjoy and espouse live theatre. So let's all join hands and support the theatre-going culture. And by so doing, we'll all be really giving the creative economy a big push.
Yeah.
And the artists are going to feel good. And all of us are going to be happy.
When is the Ministry of Youth Affairs, Arts and Creative Economy knocking at the door?
For what?
To support.
Okay. I'll ask them. So far, I've not heard from them.
I like that response. In short, you're not even anticipating to hear from them anytime sooner. Okay. But I appreciate your great insights.
Thank you so much, Brian.
Karibu sana. We have been speaking to Wreiner Mandu. He's a founder and producer at Igiza Arts. And if you've not gotten the details about the film, tafadhali, about the play, I also even was thinking maybe you're a playwright like Cleophas Malala, but you've said specifically you are a producer.
Yes.
Right. So www.igizaarts.co.ke. Log on to it and you'll get to speak directly to Mr. Wreiner. So thank you so much. And good luck, all the best. I hope I'll make it to come and witness the live action.
I'll remind you.
Just right here
to the time.
At KNT.
Yes, yes.
So.
Thank you.
All right. So let's do this. Thank you for watching, actually. We're just 2 minutes, so thank you for watching. We'll absolutely see you tomorrow bright and early right here. Have a fantastic Tuesday.